Cool. Hello, we're live. It's time for Nonfiction Book Club. This is the fanciest intro we've ever given ourselves, and it's to make up for the fact that today is going to be not our strongest showing, maybe. We are here to talk
that's
about
not our
Empire.
fault. It's not our fault. Oh,
it is my fault.
Introduce ourselves.
Yeah. So
hi.
I
think this StreamYard message is showing up on the thing.
It sure is. Hi.
There it is.
We were just talking about software that like tries to do things that other more advanced software does and simplifies it, but then they do it in ways that it like actually makes your life harder. I've never used OBS before, but I imagine that's like kind of what just happened with StreamYard. Like they are now like this whole interface looks different to me and I'm not ready for it. And so I feel like that's what just happened. But hi, I'm Devoki. This is my channel. And usually I pick science-y books. That didn't happen today. We'll talk about it. But yeah, welcome to Nonfiction Book Club. I've started posting videos again. And by videos, I mean one video. I have posted one video. So I finally can call myself a YouTuber again. So I'm really excited to hopefully post more videos soon and actually feel like an actual booktuber. But yeah, this is my channel. We're here to talk about Empire Incorporated. And I'm here with Nicole.
Yep, and I'm Nicole. I'm the aforementioned.
I took your whole intro from you.
That was it.
Yeah. So for those of you who've like been here, which is like I'm guessing most of you, I feel like at this point we have like a good core audience who like knows what to expect. But I think even for those of you who have been here, this might be a little bit of a wild day. Because like, and also if you're new, and like if you came here specifically because you were like, I want to see a discussion of Empire Incorporated, I have read the book, I have things to discuss. You can make yourselves known to us because we do not feel like we are capable of discussing this book. This is the closest I have ever felt to being defeated.
I feel it's mostly I'm sorry because what's actually going to happen is VOD. So you're going to get people who are searching for Empire Incorporated on YouTube after the fact who might find this. I've gotten comments on some of our old like live streams, like somebody like came looking for something, and they're like, oh, well, thank you for talking about this book. If that was your experience, if you read Empire Incorporated and this, sometime in the future you found this live stream because you're like, wow, people are talking about this book I just read. Tell us what you think about it. But you're going to be disappointed and I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. And I'm sorry to the author. I don't usually like feel bad for an author, but like I feel a little bit bad just because I don't, so I picked this book. Okay, so let's start with
let's back up.
And I'll talk about how we ended up here. This is like when you have like a sitcom that starts and
I bet you're wondering how it's freeze frame.
How we got here.
How we found ourselves in this situation.
Yeah. So I like usually have a policy of not buying books unless I've like already read them or I like have a good reason for not like waiting, or basically like nonfiction book club. Like nonfiction book club, I always read the books. But this like I saw at Barnes and Noble's. I saw the cover and I was like, great cover, like minimalist, impactful. And then I like saw also like what it was about, and I was really curious because it was like about the idea of like corporations driving colonialism and like particularly kind of like British colonialism. And like I've obviously like I know of the East India Company, but like I guess I had never really thought about the relationship between like how does the East India Company then lead to like the British Empire,
right? And like, or just like I like the East India Company as a company. I feel like it's just like not, I don't know, like in my head. Just
right.
All
like
of that.
It's a name.
Yes.
And so like, I was like, great. You know what? Actually, I'm intrigued. Like, I really want to understand.
Themes of colonialism. Like that's like, we've touched on that. Like there's ways in which you're like, yeah, okay, sure.
And even in like the intro to this book, there was a way in which I felt like this approaches other things that we have talked about in terms of like, I don't know, like ambiguity of like, corporations. Like I guess like to me that like ties to like back to like surveillance capitalism, like all like that kind of thing. And so I love
really with capitalism. Like, looking at my stack of books.
And so that's what I was really most drawn to, and that's what I was like really I think looking towards, and I think what I expected, and this is like where I think I feel like maybe not apologetic, but I don't know how to judge this book is really what I'm saying. Is that I think it's hard for me to like talk about like how I feel this book without it being more about what I was hoping for it to be
Right.
rather than what it actually is. Because I think that this book for the right audience is probably a thrilling book. But like what it actually is, it's not like the 101 or even a narrative. It's not like a narrative at all, really, of like how does the company go from like inception to like how does it work to how does that translate to colonial rule to like I don't know, like how does that become like a militant thing? Like that's the kind of thing that I was really kind of going into this hoping for. It's really much more about charters and joint stocks. And there's a lot of things about what corporations are and kind of like an existential crisis about what corporations are in the context of colonialism. At least that's what he's like documenting. And it happens again and again and again. And so it's weird because I found this book both very repetitive, but also very difficult to absorb. Like it's very much the same things happening again. And that's like a big part of the point is that these conversations around what corporations are doing and like what they even are and like how that relates to colonialism is like so central to like what is happening. But I still feel like I did not understand what was happening.
I really didn't. I started. I have like a couple tabs. I have 4 tabs.
Yeah,
and they
I have one
see,
tab.
They're only in the beginning and they stop.
Yeah.
Basically, the first 2 were moments where I was like, okay, this feels like a central sort of summarizing thing. So I'm going to underline this, and so that way, like I can refer back to it because this is like the crux of what we were doing. I think I talked about this actually. Speaking of surveillance capitalism, about how like how that reminded me again a lot of like the grad school of it all. Of like I had this professor. I think one of my like intro class at the beginning of grad school was talking about how like a lot of he was intentionally assigning us a lot of like very, very heady stuff, partially to teach us to not like hyperfixate on trying to understand like on sort of a sentence by sentence level, that there's a certain way in which you're going through it. Like you got to go through it, you got to take it all in, and then for some things you're taking it all in and then you actually do have to go back and read it again. But other times, like you will find that if you're not trying to fixate on sort of a sentence by sentence level, you will often find that like you get to the end of like a couple paragraphs, you're like, okay, I actually do catch the vibe of this, even if I didn't, like you lost me a couple points in the middle there, but like the overall thing that you're saying, sort of, I got it. And there have been like a handful of books. Surveillance capitalism definitely jumps out as like that was the experience that I was having often while reading it. And so that's like sort of what I was like, okay, cool. So I feel like I found sort of a thing, but it was getting harder and harder for me to like establish that. I was like, this is just sort of happening. It's just sort of washing over me. And then the other 2 things I tabbed were just things that made me giggle, where I was like, this is just a funny story about a weird little guy who had a.
So that's the thing that's surprising to me is this book is so dry. It is also funny. Like there are funny parts. Like that's where again, like I don't know how to judge this book because like I don't think it's just that this is like a dry history book entirely. It's just that like the funny parts are not the point of it.
Yeah.
Like I have this part that I read yesterday. I posted it to Instagram because I was just immediately like, this is incredible. Okay. It's from page 293. The invasion turned out to consist of landing 500 rifles and other goods, 1 English subordinate, a German accountant, a Jewish interpreter, a Portuguese sailor, to which 1 French Algerian witness reportedly reacted by exclaiming, "Voila, un bouillabaisse." And I'm just like, I don't understand. Like, this is a whole list of very weird things going on. This is the least dry sentence I've come across recently. And I have like a lot of like little moments through through the book where I'm like, there are parts of this that are like actually funny.
There's John Welby at the beginning of chapter 4. He hatched many schemes to mount a return of his own. Many of them he conceived while whiling away his time in one of London's several debtors' prisons. So this guy's hanging out in debtors' prisons. And then there's like a lot of dry sentences in between this, but like his things included tried to interest the Royal Society in backing a venture and several related schemes, including the development of a cure-all anti-venereal water. which unfortunately didn't work out for him. Later, he claimed to have uncovered the alchemical secrets of the Philosopher's Stone and proposed a project that he insisted would bring in upwards of £100 million if only he could get money from the king or parliament to help him get going. They declined the opportunity. It says, great. They there's like little bits like that where I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. So I think ultimately what my big takeaway is that this is just like not an us book. This is just not.
We found it. We have been sort of poking and prodding at the limits over the last 5 years, and there is something so like fitting and funny to me hitting at this moment.
Today we have found it.
We did it. We felt like the book that both of us were like, I don't know. Like we've definitely had books where one of us is like, I was struggling a little bit. And then, like I'm thinking about some of the, like there's some earlier science books that you picked where I was like, okay, Deboki, I need you to tell me what I just read. But like even with those books, even with something like I'm thinking about, the Katie Mack book, The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking, like was definitely one where there's a lot of like really big, complicated, but like at the end of the chapter, she'd be like, okay, but also you could just take a piece of paper and you push it together. And I'm like, elementary school arts and crafts. Now I understand what you're saying. In this way that like, this just never relented. It was all like, up here and like the bits where it did relent a little bit where I was like it was stuff like that where it was more anecdotal. It was just anecdotal and not like an actual summary of the point
what was going on. That's like the thing where I feel more secure in being critical of the book is that I do think that like good nonfiction writing should have like a clear argument, and maybe that is the thing where I feel more secure in like saying like there are weaknesses in the book and that is what it is. Like that maybe there's a version of this book like that would still not be for us, but that would at least have been more readable and comprehensible. Because I think there is the dryness. I think it's in service of something that is important to people who are interested in this field, right? Like I think there is I think this book is probably compelling, like deeply compelling to people who are like super into charters and patents and corporation structures and the nuances of like a joint stock structure versus something else. But like we're not those people. That's fine. But at the very least, what was hard for me was like feeling like I needed to have that like clear thesis statement. And I don't know if it was in there and I just missed it, but I found it very hard to kind of decipher. And so the closest I got to it was sort of like how there is like an ambiguity around companies that is what made them both successful, but also controversial as an engine of like driving colonialism. I do think that like my takeaway, I do think there's a way in which I'm glad that I did this. Like, I'm glad that I picked it for myself selfishly because I did buy the book. It was towards something that I was curious about. And I think it did give me like a little bit of an appreciation for the fact that like, okay, companies are very responsible for colonialism, or like they were like, not just like companies do colonialism, but like that they were like a big engine of colonialism in this era in a way that I didn't appreciate, like, or I just like didn't know, like I just like didn't have a sense. So to that end, I am glad. Yeah. This is still not for me the book that would have been the.
I mean, I guess to the degree that I understood what we were doing here with this book, I would add that it's not just that. It's the like the intermingling of those things. It's it's the ways in which like the state has enabled corporate like companies to like engage in governmental behavior. And that's the thing that I kept, like the thread that I was sort of trying to understand that is here. There's a lot of that just sort of broadly, the intermingling of like, not just colonialism, but like, I think there are maybe even broader implications than that, but like the connection between the state and companies being fraught, as you said, and like I don't know.
No, exactly. Like the moment I try to like put it into words, it feels like it falls apart because it's like it's barely hanging together as a thought in my head.
It also
Yeah.
makes me appreciate, I mean, I also am like glad you picked it. I said that there's something just like really sort of funny and fitting to me about this book being like here in at this point. But I mean that not just because of like, LOL, it broke us. We found our limit, which yes, that is kind of funny to me. But also, I feel like one of the things that has come up a lot the longer we've done this is something that you just said about like, you know, what makes good nonfiction writing. That like, you know, we've now done so many of these books, and not just have we like not only have we been reading a lot of nonfiction over the years, because you and I obviously both read a lot of other, you know, nonfiction books outside of what we're reading here, but like part of this is that we're picking up stuff that we wouldn't necessarily pick up too. So we're reading like a pretty broad like base of nonfiction books, reading things from quite, you know, many different categories. And I feel that for all the ways in which I can look at this and say this is not for me, I also have some like very, very real critiques of how actually legitimately comprehensible it is. Which is to say, not very.
Yeah. Like I think if we had tried to read this book 5 years ago, like it would have broken book club to begin with.
Yeah, we would have. We wouldn't be.
I would not have been trusted with the book selection
the book
anymore.
Would have been over.
And then like also like yeah, like you said, I feel like we have like more confidence in terms of like the things that like or like we just like like a shared language in this like this conversation about like what we're looking for in nonfiction. And I think also to Colby's point, this is something that I was thinking about while reading the book too. And I think it's also, I wasn't thinking about it with space exploration, and I think that is like super interesting.
I wasn't either. That's like a really good
clear, like colonization.
Yes.
But I was thinking about it, and I think it is something he like alludes to in the introduction of the book in terms of like how just like these questions about like what corporations are they people, like what are, I don't know, like the murky relationship between state and corporation, like what is that like that is the thing that like he says like is still like plaguing us today. But yeah, I think that's like a super interesting point to bring up in the context of space exploration. And now I'm like, oh, I should have put this against A City on Mars. I might have to reformat my bracket a little because I like didn't think about like, oh yeah, this was a little bit like about colonization. But that, sorry, I think what I wanted to say is that was something that I was also like intrigued by, because there's also the depressing reality of like the current state of relationship between private company, particularly one private company person in our government. And like, so that's what I was like thinking about while reading this, which wasn't fun, but it was like, I don't know, relevant. And it added relevance to the book. Yeah. So that's, I think, where we're at. It sounds like everyone else kind of had a very similar experience in the chat with this book. So yeah.
The sort of collective the fact that the chat also is gave up. People are like, this is the first book. The people who have been riding with us have been like, all right, you know, I'll walk with you through all of these picks. This was the one that broke the collective nonfiction.
But that's okay. I was watching your video on putting back together your bracket, and you had what you called your flop era, and I was like, I think this might be this could be the start of my flop era, or hopefully it's just like so singularly floppy that like that this is what,
you know, like there's just like such a broad range of books here. You've had some real bangers, Naboki. I hope you also heard that part of the video. You know,
it's true. I did have a good string. We averaged out, so your next book, whatever it is, which we still don't know, it will be a banger.
Oh shoot, I had a stack I was going to ask you about. Well,
we'll figure it out.
You know,
we can do a group poll too.
Yeah. I can hold up my books that I was considering on the live, and you guys. I'll read the back covers. We can do it as a group, because we really don't have an hour's worth of Empire Incorporated. Although I will say, I did finish Well, there's like a question mark on that. See, I don't even know how to count whether or not I read this book because I didn't understand. Like I ingested all the words. Did I understand it? I don't know, but I did finish this book. Yes. Unlike the girl in the show.
Yeah. That's the thing is this book wasn't maddening, which is like both a testament for and against it, or like that. I feel like that's both a point for and against it, like because I feel like the reason why it wasn't maddening is because I just didn't understand it enough to like know whether or not I was mad at it. Like it wasn't like I just like couldn't say.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I am torn because I think that that's a fair critique, but I do also feel like there's a certain way in which that is a failing of the book. Like,
right. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I like this comment. Like Susan said, if it had made me mad, I would have kept reading. Yeah.
Yes.
I think Colby brings up a really good question about like what we're looking for in nonfiction or think is good. I think this is a great time to do a thing we've just talked about doing in general, which is sort of like our meta nonfiction book club discussion. Because we also like are here to chat about brackets and everything too, which we can do.
We can just pivot to that now. 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes of Empire.
I feel good about it. I feel good. I think we've done what we can, and it is what it is.
Yes.
If people have things they want to talk about, now's the time. But I guess like I guess like in terms of like what we're looking for in nonfiction or think is good. I guess the thing I have been thinking about a lot is like structure in nonfiction. Like how books like flow. I'm thinking about it a lot because I'm trying to work on a book proposal, and it turns out writing books is hard, and I don't know how to do it. Like I know I can write a video, like I can write like 1,000-word video. Figuring out how to write a book proposal is like, I gotta like think about like how to put things together and towards like an argument that is also sellable. And so like I think like I think we've always like been really interested in structure as part of our like conversations.
It's come up often.
Yeah. And then now I'm just like thinking about it in terms of like how to do it.
Yeah.
How to do a structure.
And it's an interesting, I don't think that there is a particularly clean or simple answer. Like I'm just sort of going through, I because I was filling out my side of the bracket, I have all of my 20 books literally sitting in front of me right now. And so I'm like looking at them, trying to sort of suss out what things I think are particularly effective in some of them versus others. And like, I do think, like structure is a good one. But it is not necessarily a simple one. Like there's like several different, these books are structured in different ways that work in different, like for different things. I feel like something that comes up for me often is that I do feel like you should have some sort of clean, concise point. Like that, like something that you are building towards at the end of all of this. And it's not that like, I think I get it. You have a whole book, so one sentence isn't everything. But I should be able to, in a sentence or two, say this is like the thesis statement.
Yeah,
which I cannot do for this book. Right. And for the ones that I like genuinely enjoyed, I feel like I can. Like I could go down the line and be like, yep, here's like the crux of what they were trying to say and like the argument they were building. Even for the more, narrative books, like I still think that that's like some of the like there's a few here that are more I don't know, historical in nature, where it's like telling you the arc of an event. But like I'm thinking of Set the Night on Fire, which like I think isn't quite as much of an argument as The Age of Surveillance Capitalism or some of the others, where there's like a very explicit thesis statement, and I'm going to give you all the evidence to build towards the thesis statement. This is less of that, but this is more like, here's a story, here's what was going on in the 60s, but it's like building towards I didn't really think about this, so I'm about to actually do this book a little bit dirty, because I actually off the top of my head cannot pull like the sort of ending, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
But I do
But I
feel
feel
like it has one.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like I think at the very least there has to be a clear image of what you're
Yes.
bringing it. Like at least that's what I think. Like the word that comes to mind for that book is like image.
Sorry, my cover was not on the jacket was. I have to fix it.
Yeah, and I think like again, sorry, I am refracting all of this through the experience right now of trying to work on a book proposal, and so like it's really insufferable to hear someone talk about like, hey, I'm trying to be a writer.
No, I like it. It's really meta. I like it.
But yeah, it is like that is like the biggest struggle for me right now is like working on a proposal and figuring out how to frame it around an argument, because you come in and you're just like, I think everything about this topic is really interesting,
right?
And like I think other people should find it interesting. And obviously that's not how you can write anything. And then with a book, you have to justify it in terms of the length. Like you have to justify that it's going to be like a multi-chapter process. You have to justify that it's going to like be worth people's time, that there is like an audience for it.
Right.
And it's just like been interesting to learn how to do that, because I still don't know how to. Yeah. So I think those are like two big things. And then I feel like there's always like then like a thing that I always like get into is like loving like specificity, loving like there's a clear, and I think this might go towards structure. I think where structure can really become important then is like around that argument, like how it gets the reader to buy your argument is really interesting to me. Like how the way that you structure things can like build on it. Like I'm thinking about the end of everything right now, just because like I am writing up my bracket as we do this. I like remember how each of those chapters kind of like ended to like kind of prelude, like actually if we look at this assumption that leads to this is the way that the universe ends, and like that kind of like helps you kind of connect these different ideas together. And I just found that helpful, because especially like understanding physics and putting that in the context of the end of the world is tough. And I think, like I think about this with like pop science books, because like we've done a few pop science books, but overall sometimes they're not as exciting like as I think they can be, because they are like so simplistic in their structure. And I think sometimes what ends up making like a really exciting book to me is one that's like willing to be a little bit like complicated and messy and like willing to dabble in weird thinking.
That's interesting. I mean, I think that we have had a few that have been really good for that reason. That is like riskier though, is the thing. Like it's
for sure.
If you can pull it off, if you can stick that landing, great. But definitely, I don't know. I think that like to that end, I'm also watching you. To that end, I would say you have something like virology and something like the Sea Creatures one, which I both think are doing that. And I think the Sea Creatures one like nailed it. Like to me, in virology, I think it had some hits, but it also had some strong misses in the ways in which it was like, So
maybe we should just share this. And
let's do it. Let's let everybody join us.
As I fill this in. You can see how badly we use Canva.
Yeah, well, don't listen.
How do I do this?
I'm not responsible.
Can I not just share? Okay.
Your screen?
I have to screen. I
present?
Have to share my screen. Yeah. Let me just make sure I don't have anything on my screen that I was working on my taxes today, and my taxes are boring, but I also don't want to.
I agree. Susan just pointed out that some of her favorite nonfiction has chapters that are able to stand alone in terms of interest in making a point, but all work together to reveal something larger. Which I think
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think that's like, I think this makes a lot of sense. I think there are also some books, which is like, there are some books that I've read. This is not referring to I like to watch, because I like to watch is great. But there's some books that feel to me like a bunch of New Yorker articles kind of just stapled together into a book.
Which is what I like to watch is to be
and yet somehow that one I'm fine with. I think because
Uh-huh.
that is the premise of the book. Like you go
Yeah.
into it knowing that, and so it's fine.
But there's like a cohesion, but she did at least make an effort to like it's like how it is edited together.
Right.
Versus there are other times where, to your point, anyway, sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. No, exactly. Sorry. You can keep talking because
okay. While you're staring at screen. Yeah. Yes, that premise is interesting because like it's another one of those things that I would put in the like works when it works and doesn't when it doesn't because the collection of New Yorker articles stapled together is definitely like a sort of a subgenre of nonfiction book, and I think that you really, really have to be thoughtful about how you are editing that collection together and like what kinds of through lines you're adding. And she not only does she set that in the example of like I like to watch, she sets that up in the introduction, but she also edited several of those pieces for the book. Like she tweaked them in ways that without having actually done, a side-by-side comparison, I would have to imagine are part of making the whole thing feel more cohesive. Look at how fancy we are. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's there.
We've got it going. So this is our bracket. I am still finishing it.
Can you remove Susan's comment? Not that it's not a good comment, but just so we can see your screen. Yeah.
We have now like gotten to the important part of this live stream where we're like, actually, we are professionals.
Yeah. Look at us go. Look at us go. I have an amendment. If you did watch my video as I was assembling my brackets, I did make one like 11th hour change. You can sort of see me considering it in the book or in the video as I considered where Warren should go. And afterwards, which Warren I had originally had in my journalist stack, but I had Set the Night on Fire in my academics stack. And upon further consideration, I have changed those. And so Warren is with the academics and Set the Night on Fire is with the journalists. So because none of this really matters. And that video was just me sitting on the floor going, what? But it was also going to be
very frustrating. No.
Yeah, after I sat through it. It's just as Deboki is typing, I will recap. Then I'm really just trying to buy you time to type away. But so my sorting system that I decided. So if you look at the way that we have this set up, because we each have 20 on. I guess I should back all the way up just in case you don't know 100% what's going on here. We each have picked 20 books, including this most recent edition. So we have 20 books on either side, and then they're going to, funnel up. And so we each took our 20 books to fill out like, half and half of this bracket here. And that gave us 2 groups of 8 and 1 group of 4. So the grouping that I chose, what I did here is that for my group of 4, I went with what I'm calling the vibes. I kept saying bracket in my video, but it's not conference. Conference, is that the word they use? I think
conference.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody in the chat. Nobody left any comments on my video correcting my language. I feel like there's the overlap, but it's not there. Okay. This is the Vibes Conference, which consists of The Personality Brokers by Merve Emra, The Strange History of Myers-Briggs and the Birth of Personality Testing. I'm not going to read all the subheads. Mood Machine by Liz Pelly, The Lonely City by Olivia Lang, and Bittersweet by Susan Kane. And then for my 2 things of 8, I realized afterwards too that I actually had other groupings that I maybe could have gone with. I sort of like subcategorized my 2 groups of 8. So my first, what do I have? What is up there? Hold on, I gotta look at this and make sure I know which order they're there. I'm doing this backwards. Vibes is on bottom. So that one in the middle there is my academics bracket. And I sort of split it a little bit because I have quite a few books about education. So I have 4 books and a sort of like, so there's like my academics conference. And then within that, I have like education books. So Paying the Price by Sarah Goldrick Rab, and Ghosts in the Schoolyard by Eve L. Ewing, Another Kind of Public Education by Patricia Hill Collins, and I added Read Dangerously, The Subversive Power of Literature in Troubled Times. So this is a little bit of a reach for my education category, but it'll play. And then the other 4 academics I have are Worn, A People's History of Clothing by Sophie Tannhauser, The Stonewall Reader, edited by the New York Public Library. So included because I feel that the library is an academic.
It sure is.
And, The Managed Heart, Commercialization of Human Feeling by Arlie Russell Hochschild, and Chonky Boy Extraordinaire, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff. That's my academics bracket. And then, or academics conference. And then up top there, I have my journalists conference. I don't know. Let's see, what's the order that they're listed in up there? I have Dreamland by Sam Quinones, The True Tale of America's Opiate Epidemic. And then we have The Great Displacement by Jake Biddle, and The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs, Set the Night on Fire, LA in the 60s, Consumed by Aja Barber, Culture Warlords, The Girl in the Show, and Anansi's Golds. I did it. That's it. That's my
did it. Yeah. So that is Nicole's side of the bracket.
Vibes.
And then over here, we've got my cobbled together.
Yeah.
So we've got the
makes
science
sense.
corner.
Mhm.
And mostly I tried to match these up a little bit like subjecty, but it got a little bit messy, especially up here. Yeah. So we'll start with Superior, which is my first pick ever, and Up to Speed, because I feel like these are both about deficiencies in science.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That was my loose thread.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
connecting them. I think originally I put Superior against the Gene, but then I put the Gene somewhere else. I don't remember fully why. We'll get to it. But
I feel like, wait, hold on. I feel like that. I love that. Can you, I do. I feel like I don't want to like speed. I was speed running through mine because I like explained all of these
oh yeah
at length.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I feel like it's worth saying a little bit more about what both Superior and Up to Speed are, because that's like a great connection. I love that.
Yeah. So Superior is about race science and like how bad it is, like how it's not a real science, but it's like informed the way that we think about things, like scientifically, medically. Like it is such a strong, like the notion of race is a real thing, that it is not actually scientifically borne out to be, is like, and when I say that, I mean like biologically, like there is race as it is treated in the real world, and that is a real thing. But there is race as people try to treat it biologically, and that is not real, but it has still led to a lot of very bad science. So that is Up to Speed, which is about women athletes, or like kind of the lack of science about female athletes and really female bodies in general, and how that's led to like just like poor like nutritional advice, bad design of sports bras, like lots of stuff. So that's why I set those two up against
and in
each
both
other.
cases it's like examples of like biases in the human beings conducting science that is resulting in worse science. Like they're doing their jobs worse because of their pre-existing biases. That's a great matchup. Love it.
Thank you. Then we've got the space section. So we've got Disordered Cosmos versus The End of Everything. So I guess Disordered Cosmos is not strictly about space, but I think of it as very spacey. And then we've got Oceans. So we've got Fathoms versus How Far the Light Reaches. We've got The Whale Book versus our very
The Sea Creature
memoir. And And then virology versus I contain multitudes, because I consider that the little tiny things section.
Yeah, little guy section.
That's my little microcosmos section.
Yeah. the JTTM face off.
Yep. And then we've got our culture section. So first up is everything I need I get from you versus Cue the Sun, because I kind of think of those two as very like fandom-y. I mean, everything I need I get from you is definitely very fandom.
Yeah.
Cue the Sun is a little bit, but like kind of maybe like the way that I'll justify it is they're kind of like two different sides of like the culture. Like one side is maybe the making it, one side is the receiving it, but they're both kind of creating something in their own way. So that's what I found compelling there. Then just because they were on the opposite side, I like to watch versus Read or Come Home. And then I think this next one is a little bit tenuous. A City on Mars versus The Alchemy of Us, but I kind of consider them related. So A City on Mars is about how we're probably not going to be able to settle on Mars one day. Alchemy of Us was sort of like an interesting book about like the role of technology in our lives. And so I think that's where they were like connected to me, is like the challenges of technology and kind of limitations. Yeah. And then the last one, I think, is just Europe. And so that's the Battle of Versailles. That's very incorporated.
Europe.
Yeah. Really, it's America. It's like that's what the Battle of Versailles is about, is the rise of American fashion, basically. And Empire Incorporated at times is about the American settlers being like, no, the corporation is not quite right.
Chad approves of it's just.
Thank you. Thank you. And then this last section is my vibes section. I think when I was watching I think I originally had a different set of books here. And then I realized from watching you, like, oh, right, like whoever gets through this section gets an automatic, like, to the final. So, like, I gotta, like, actually make this, like, a group of books that I'm rooting for every single one on. So I did On Immunity versus The Mushroom at the End of the World, because I think of them as funky little sciencey books, but not actually strictly sciencey books. Mushroom at the End of the World is more anthropologist. Well, it is an anthropology book, which for me is like not really what I usually read. On Immunity is like a really interesting, like kind of almost literary take on science and trying to understand public health and everything. Right. So I appreciated it for its weirdness and like kind of reflection. And then we've got The View from Somewhere, which has just been one of those books that I think is kind of like always informed a lot of things that we end up talking about in terms of how it talks about like journalistic objectivity or just objectivity in general. And then The Gene, which is also, I think, about perspective, but the perspective from your DNA. Yeah. So that is my side. Yeah.
Beautiful. Wow.
That is our bracket.
That's our bracket. That's our 5 years of nonfiction book club bracket. And I guess we'll run polls.
Yeah. We have no idea how we're doing this. So like I think polls on Instagram will probably be the way to go.
I feel like I maybe I'll do them on Instagram. I might just do them on YouTube in the community tab.
Oh yeah, that works too.
I don't feel like
I want to just do it in one place. So we'll figure it out. We'll send it out via the newsletter when we figure out what we're doing.
We got a newsletter.
Yeah, and maybe post about it in Discord and see what feels right.
Yeah. What the correct vibe is for people. Yes. So you can vote, you can weigh in. Some of these, it was like really hard. Like, okay, assembling this was tricky because I was like, I don't know how to make the categories. Like that's, but then
also, I think like most of my picks are like so clearly either like culture or science that was for me like very easy.
I mean, I feel like there's a couple that are a little fuzzy.
Sure. The fact that I put A City on Mars and culture.
that was a big one I was thinking about when you said that. Alchemy of Us, A City on Mars.
Yeah, also
the fact that you put the two of them against each other, I was like, that checks out. Those are the two that are like, but they're both of those. It makes sense to me Those are both
Yeah.
books where you could have put them in either place, and like that feels that feels logical to me.
Yeah.
Hello, Rachel, welcome. We just did our little summary of the bracket. If you want to go back and watch us 2x speed run it. When I was you can see okay, sorry. When I was putting them together, like for all of the frustration that I experienced in trying to assemble the brackets, I feel like like there were several books where as I was trying to explain them, I was like, I don't know, this book was fine, but actually having to assemble like, okay, this against this against this, I started to have this feeling of like, oh man, that one's going to be tough. Like as I was assembling, there's just like several places where I was like, oh no, this book that I really love is probably only going to make it through one round. And then it'll get knocked out. And I don't know, it was just exciting to realize that like on the whole, I've liked most of the books we've read, like most of what we've done there have been a few, we've had our flops, but like by and large, I have loved most of the books that we've read, which is really
it would have been great to have, like, I think you also brought up in your video that like there would be really interesting brackets, like if we actually did combine our books. And having a flop section would have been great.
That's true.
Like I do want to see Empire Incorporated versus The Girl in the Show.
That is actually like a really tough. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about that actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that question of like, is making you mad like still an indication of something?
I mean, I will say, so I did not finish The Girl in the Show. I did finish Empire Incorporated. However, to go back to everything that we said about like what makes like things that we look for in a good nonfiction book, they are all things that The Girl in the Show actually does check and Empire Incorporated does not, which is like a really interesting, I think my problem with The Girl in the Show is just that I think that she is using I think that her evidence is just bad. Her evidence is bad, and she misunderstands her evidence at several points to like build towards her conclusion. Like her argument is incredibly weak, but also she has a clear argument. Like I don't know, she has a clear argument. She's structured the argument well. Anyway. Interesting. Very interesting. The flops. The flops. A bonus round. Maybe we can, we could do like a, after we get to like winner, we could do sort of like a losers run. Cause I did actually split mine up too. Like I have Girl in the Show, like what are the Dreamland, Girl in the Show, like the few that I'm like, I really did not like them. They're pretty far away from each other. So I'm like, I feel really reasonably confident they'll lose their first round. So we could pull a few of the, they're the first round losers and set them aside for the Razzies of nonfiction book club. Exactly, Colby. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Alas.
We've read a lot of books.
40 books we've read.
Yeah.
And like a pretty wide. Oh, do we want to talk about what we're going to read next time?
Oh yeah. Let's do that.
Okay, hold please.
I'm going to just stare contentedly into the screen while Nicole goes and picks up some books. But yeah, so we will figure out what we're going to do for this and post it. And then go for it. I was just trying to fill the time.
Yeah.
Repeating what we've been saying.
Yeah. Listen, I've hosted Project for Awesome live stream segments. There's a lot of you're like, okay, we got to keep it moving, keep the show.
Yeah. Yeah. We are entertainers here.
We are entertainers. Gosh. Okay, I have a stack of 4 nonfiction books that I own and have not read, which once upon a time, that was our goal. That was like our thing that we were doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is one that I have suggested to in the past, The Fabric of Civilization, How Textiles Made the World. I think that I have heard this one talked about in a similar vein to Horn, but I feel like I have heard people say better things about this.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, similar sort of vibe. The history of humanity is the story of textiles as old as civilization itself. I feel like we've all read enough books here that we can catch a vibe. Your Brain on Art, How the Arts Transform Us. This I picked up around the same time, actually, when I was buying Mood Machine, as part of just sort of like an ongoing, I don't know, my struggle with my relationship with the internet and with how I'm consuming art. But let's see. Many of us think of the arts as entertainment, a luxury of some kind. In Your Brain on Art, the authors show how activities from painting, making music, and dancing to expressive writing, architecture, and more are essential to our lives. So that's the vibe of that guy. And then I have Filter World, How Algorithms Flatten Culture. I feel like probably also this is one that everybody here has heard of. This was like buzzy. And then finally, okay, I will say all three of these books do have audiobooks. This last guy does not have an audiobook. Sitcom, A History in 24 Episodes from I Love Lucy to Community. So it's like this book is now like 15 years old, but it's a bunch of sitcoms. It's just like it's maybe like a cousin to I Like to Watch, but slightly more. This is like a thing that they're assigning in like class in college classes about. So yeah. Anyway, those are my 4 books. Does anybody have any strong? Are there any books here that you're like immediately no? What is the frame? Anything here that you're like you want me to remove, or leave leave it all to the chat?
I think let's leave it all. Let's leave it all to the chat.
Okay.
This is our special 5-year.
And our 5-year celebration. For our 5-year celebration, we're leaving it all to the chat. The 5 of you who are here today have the option to tell us what we should read. I don't know. I guess I can tell you more about what they are, but I feel like we know what
they're all pretty. It seems pretty
straightforward. Self-explanatory. Okay. We have a single vote for the Fabric of Civilization.
We're practicing voting. The way that you guys are going to be voting on the bracket, we're practicing now voting on the next book.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's easier in a poll than this format where we're like, no, you must individually declare your vote. It's like a different, there's like a commitment to your vote that is very different when you're just like quietly clicking a poll between 2 options.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't do polls in the chat, right?
No, I don't think so.
We can start a poll. We can start a poll.
We can start a poll. Look at us. Look at us using YouTube. We're professionals.
Okay, so Fabric of Civilization.
Fabric of Civilization.
Your Brain on Art. Filter World and Sitcom.
Wow, look at that. Look at that.
Oh, we have live results.
Ooh, live results happening now. Ooh, look at it go.
This is really exciting.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna go follow up my little post about this. Quote post. Thank you. Oh, what a twist! It's going a different direction than I was expecting.
Yeah.
So this is the thing when people can anonymously click a radio button.
Yeah.
It's different.
So we're going to give it 2 more minutes. Okay. Maybe. Let's do that. And then we will end the poll, and whatever is at the top, that is the book.
It's decided. We're committed. We're doing
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
We should have like some kind of prize for the March Madness, but I don't even know. Like we send the author of whoever wins March Madness.
Yeah. Here, you won we'll send them like a little pin in the mail. You did it. Jocelyn, RIP sitcom. I did not really do sitcom any favors in my presentation of it. Like it doesn't have an audiobook, and I think it's a book that people are assigned in schools. Poor sitcom.
Yeah.
You know, I really just didn't want to lead people on. You know, I didn't want to be like, this book's a guaranteed banger, I promise.
Yeah.
And then have people read it and be like, Nicole, why? Also, I do feel like maybe if we hadn't just read Empire Incorporated, that wouldn't be quite so fresh for people, you know?
Yeah.
There's a way in which it's like, this is too much.
Yeah.
This is
it's been a lot. We've asked a lot of you guys.
We've asked a lot. You've asked too much.
To be fair, we asked it of ourselves too.
We did ask it of ourselves too, to be fair. Like, come on. You know?
See, that was like part of my thing too. Like, I started reading this a few weeks ago because again, maybe we do a live for the bracket. Oh, that's a good
interesting.
Yeah.
I do. That feels like a lot less maintenance.
Yeah.
I do like that.
That's a lot less, especially because I feel like sometimes with brackets, it's like everything happens and then you like keep having to do it. Yeah. And then there's sort of like less excitement as you go along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe our next book club will be actually just this.
Okay.
That's a good idea, Colby. Thank you for that.
That's a great idea. I love that idea. That's a lot simpler. So we've set up the brackets. We'll post Deboki.
If I didn't have a child like who I had to go tend to in a little bit, I would be like, let's just do that now. That's the problem.
No. Yeah.
No, we're gonna figure that out.
We'll set up the next one in maybe in a similar way. I mean, maybe not quite so much weight for for the back half of it, but we'll maybe next time we'll do like 40 a tight 40 book club, and leave us 20 minutes for bracket, or maybe we can check in with the brackets throughout. Maybe that's the way we do it.
That's a good call.
We start it by saying like, okay, so we're doing book club. It'll be a little chaotic. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like that's gonna make for a fairly chaotic book club.
Yeah.
Make book club run a little bit long, but that's okay. I feel like as long as we know going in that that's the setup, that's what we're gonna do. Because it just the thing that's tricky about it is that it means we essentially have to run how many polls is this over the course of the entire book club, right? So there's 20 to start, and then you have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, right. That makes sense. So there's the initial 20 rounds on either side, and then the 10, 20, 10, whatever. It's a lot of polls that we have to run over the course of of the club.
So it might end up having to still be. We'll see. We'll figure
it out. Maybe we can do the initial.
Or we can do the final voting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's where I was going.
Or like the final four or something. We'll do.
Yes. Yeah. We'll do at the very least the initial, like, you'll do your 20 and I'll do my, it's 10 polls actually, but you'll do your first 10 polls. I'll do my first 10 polls, and then maybe even like maybe we get it all the way down to the final four on our own, and then we can come and we'll do. So then that's only one.
We're professionals, you guys.
Yeah, sorry.
We know what we're doing.
In real time. Yeah. It's too much.
So I think our book is Your Brain on Art.
Okay. Cool. The people have decided. They've committed. It was a tight race there.
Yeah.
We were getting some movement. RIP sitcom. So, okay. That is our April book, Your Brain on Art, How the Arts Transform Us. By Susan Maximin and Ivy Ross. So that's what we're reading. We don't have a date or time yet. It'll probably be late April since it is late March now.
Yeah.
And sometime near the end of the month, we'll figure on my channel and talk about.
Thank you guys for joining us for this absolute nonsense live stream, because especially the fact that you guys also didn't finish the book and still joined us and
still
forgave us and forgave me for my choices. I appreciate it. I think it's a testament to the fun that we have here, though, that you guys are still here,
exactly.
willing to join us, because it's fun for us to be able to be like, nope, we didn't get it.
We didn't really understand this book.
I was gonna bail. So like I will say, like we have bailed on one book in our entire time on Nonfiction Book Club.
Yes.
Because it didn't have an audiobook and was also incredibly dense. And I think you like got a little bit into it. And you're like, nah. And I almost bailed on this, but I was like, I have it. I'm going to finish it.
Yes.
And so I'm glad. I'm glad that I did it this one time. And maybe next time I would bail, but I'm glad for this time that I did it.
That book has a really similar title. The Cold War book. It's like
the Fabricated Heart. Is that the
No, the one book that we bailed on was it was my pick, and I was like, never mind, it's actually too much. But it's about it's a Cold War. It's like a book that I had for my Cold War class I took in college, where we only read a couple chapters, and I was like, it'd be nice to read the whole thing cover to cover.
Yeah,
that book is very specifically about like culture, Irresistible Empire. Thank you, Colby.
Yes,
empire. Yeah. Like the word empire is in the in the title. There's like a anyway. Thank you, Colby. That's the one.
The empires. Yeah.
Empires.
Well,
it's tough. It's tough.
Thanks so much, you guys, for joining us. We will be back eventually with hopefully a very different reading experience. And hopefully also we will know what our final four, or we will know what we're doing for this March Madness bracket.
Sure. Yeah. And probably we'll have run some polls.
Yeah. And it's going to carry it over into April, but that's okay too.
And it is for sure going to carry into April. We won't. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.